where we brined the 4 birds that we had. They sat for around 3.5 to 4 hours. I think that should do just fine. If you wanted to leave them for a longer period of time, you could. There's nothing wrong with that. But I took them out and actually let them sit in the sink so that the excess liquid would drain. You can see here that I have just a sheet pan with a broiler top. I don't know what it's called, a slotted pan. With the slotted pan, what I've done is I've taken some carrots, a little bit of celery, and some little new potatoes. I put a little bit of pepper on them, but I haven't coated them in any oil. What happens is I take this and place this on top. This may sit a little bit above because of the potatoes, but as they cook, they will mush just slightly so that this will drop down. And then I'm going to place 2 of the birds on top of the sheet pan. You can cook 2 birds at a time if you care to, or you can cook 4, which in the end is what I'm going to wind up doing. But the birds here are saturated with water. They've picked up some of the brine. The meat is a little more salty. The only way that I finish these is I'll coat with a little bit of butter around the skin, the wings, the legs, all over the surface. I don't worry about the back. I'm only looking for caramelization on this side, not really concerned about it. And then I top with some fresh cracked pepper and sea salt. These will then go into the oven at 425 degrees for about 30 minutes. Without opening the oven, I'll turn it down to 350 degrees and I'll let them go another hour. If you need to check them with a meat thermometer, you can find that information online. Meat thermometers are extremely inexpensive. I believe it's around 165 to 170 degrees that it needs to be at its thickest part, which is usually through the thigh, back over here. So, the recipe itself, extremely simple. Everyone is usually very happy with roast chicken as a meal. And after we take the birds out, we will show what they look like roasted. And then we'll show the process of deboning the birds after dinner to start the process of saving the meat for stock, the bones for stock, the skin for stock, saving the meat for jambalaya. Then I'll go ahead and just start doing this so we can have that. And I can edit around, like I said. Putting the butter on top allows a little bit more browning of the skin. The solids in the butter tend to caramelize and create a little bit more of a brown crust on the bird. I've tried using olive oil as well, and it's not wrong, it's not bad, but I prefer butter. It's just a small amount of fat. The potatoes that are underneath and the vegetables don't have any additional salt added to them. All of the salt that they need will come from the birds. As they cook, some of the drippings will fall down into the pan. The vegetables, the potatoes will cook in that, and it will provide enough of salt for the potatoes to make it just about right. And I've done this so many times, just experience. It takes time, practice. I've worked with many a bird in my day. And this is absolutely my favorite meal. It's the most simple, the most homey. I can't think of anything that smells quite as good as roasted chicken. And the only other thing that might come close is maybe fresh baked bread that makes things smell like home. So, after the butter has coated, what then happens is the pepper will go on. You can do this as light or as thick as you care to. The butter also helps the spices, meaning the black pepper and the salt, to stick to the birds. And then, of course, we'll top with just a little bit of sea salt. The sea salt on top of the skin is also going to help pull some of the moisture out, so it gets a little bit of a crisp. The skin is often one of people's most favorite parts of the whole meal. My wife refers to it as chicken bacon. So, as you can see, not a huge amount of salt, just a little bit to accentuate and to help pull some moisture out of the skin. Again, this will be ready to go in the oven at 425 degrees for 30 minutes. You then turn down the oven for an additional hour at 350. These are not great. Alright, so this is after the hour and a half that we talked about. You can see the difference between the bird that had pepper and salt on it and the two that did not. These are going to be eaten mainly tonight and tomorrow, leftovers. The other two are going to be deboned and the skin bones reserved so we can make stock. You can see the difference in the coloration that the salt made on one bird as opposed to the other, and the addition of butter. These guys didn't have anything on them at all. These guys did. And you can see the browning difference. They look like they came out wonderfully. Here are the potatoes and the carrots, which I've just stirred. You can see the amount of liquid that's come off of the birds. So nothing is really stuck to the pan, even though they've had a little bit of caramelization happen before the liquid started falling down. I find this to be a perfect way to prepare this. And now I'm just going to go ahead and start, see if I can slice some of this and give you an idea. The juices are still running on this guy. And you can see I can almost not even get the leg off. Just the meat falls right off the bone. Let's see. I'm not by any means an expert at taking these birds apart, but I never find that anybody cares whether the leg is whole. And if I'm going for breast tissue, I tend to go in and make a cut down the length and then a little bit across. Sometimes I get the skin with it, sometimes I don't. I just keep practicing at it. But again, most people I find don't really care one way or the other. The bird's so tasty, they don't really have much concern about whether it comes out in one piece or not. Usually if I'm serving a small piece of breast, I like to give the person a little bit of skin with it. And just serve a small helping of potatoes, carrots, and celery with that. This is usually a fairly rich meal. This is something that I serve more in fall and winter. I'll also do it in summertime, but usually it's so warm you'll want something that's a little more cooling than this. One of the other reasons I like serving something like this is, one, because it's inexpensive. I'll talk at length in further videos about why these guys are called broilers as opposed to things like stewing hens, and we'll talk a little bit about how chickens are raised. But once I've made this meal, one of the reasons it really works for me is because it's not just this meal. There's a series of meals that come out of the work that I've done tonight, which includes chicken stock, and then later something like jambalaya. You can also use the stock for making chicken soup, which is 20 times better than anything you'll get out of a can or a box as far as stock is concerned. So, you get a little bit of a view of what the meal is like. I'm sure it looks horrendous and horrible to you, and it's unfortunate that you're not here with us for dinner.